What's going on, everyone? Tommy P here, back today with another naturally obsessed look into football. And before we begin, I always want to preface by saying I am not a football expert. I'm just a fan who's naturally obsessed, and today's video is sponsored by Crush the Rankings. Crush the Rankings provides elite and award-winning search engine optimization and web development. Head to crushtherankings.com today for a free SEO audit. Simply go to crushtherankings.com and enter your website on the homepage. And today is one of my absolute favorite days of the entire year, the NFL Draft. I absolutely love the NFL Draft. I obsess over it. Anyone who knows me knows that this is all I eat and sleep is NFL, everything. Like, I love everything about the NFL, and the NFL Draft in particular is probably my number one favorite off-season activity that involves football. So what we're going to do, I rarely ever make actual mock drafts of what I think is going to happen, because what I think is going to happen never actually happens. So what I'm going to do for you today is I am going to give you my top 10 prospects entering tonight's NFL Draft, and let me know in the comments section down below whether or not you agree, what your thoughts are on these prospects that I'm going to be talking about. And, you know, let's just see what happens tonight. I'm very confident that all 10 of these guys are going to be early to mid first round picks. I already know for a fact that they're not going to go in this particular order, but this is just from the time the college football season started to right now, the entire pre-draft process, the combine, pro days, all that. These are the 10 guys that I personally feel most confident are going to be the most NFL-ready prospects. So number one on my board, Aiden Hutchinson. There's a lot of talk about Trayvon Walker, and I personally think that everyone's becoming a little too in love with the amazing combine he had. You know, he's interviewed very well. That all that stuff is very important, but in my opinion, Aiden Hutchinson isn't going to bust. He has 0% chance of busting, but I do believe that he's closer to his ceiling than many of these other prospects. But my number one rule, the number one rule of an NFL general manager, do not draft for potential. Draft for what you know. And I feel like we know the most about Aiden Hutchinson. He has an amazing combination of character, skill, physical traits, and I think with all of that, you're more likely to contend for Pro Bowls and become an all-pro type playmaker. So, and I think he's a plug-and-play guy in any sort of defense. You know, you can play him in a 3-4, you can play him in a 4-3. He has a very high floor. I think that floor is very good starter in the NFL. Ceiling, elite, all-pro level player. So number one, Aiden Hutchinson. And then number two, the guy I personally think this is another guy who's a can't-miss prospect, and that's Ikem Ekanu, offensive tackle out of NC State. He's a guy that you can shuffle from tackle, both sides, by the way, left or right, guard, left or right, and he plays all four positions very, very well. He had a couple inconsistent games in ACC play, and I understand that when you're facing that level of competition, expectations are high if you're what I'm saying you're going to be right now, and that's the number two prospect in the entire NFL draft. But what I like about him most of all is he's a long-limbed, diverse athlete. He's a scheme-diverse run blocker with the potential to win with positioning or force. And he has a highlight reel of violent strikes. This guy is just, his skill set translates to just about any sort of run or pass blocking scheme that you put him into. And I think his potential as far as linemen in this draft is sky high, and it's the same thing with Hutchinson. I think we know what his floor is, and that's a very good starting offensive lineman in this league, and his ceiling, all pro level. This guy, I am so excited to watch this guy. And O-line is probably the position other than edge that I'm most excited about in this draft. I have many offensive linemen in my top 40, which is what I always do every year, is I create a top 40 big board. And many of them, I want to say I have probably 12 O-linemen in my top 40. And I think he's hands down, no question about it, the best of the bunch. And number 3, I have Trayvon Walker. Trayvon Walker out of Georgia he's the guy's a stud. He is a physical freak. He's a rugged run stopper with playing style and body type to play as an even or odd front end. He is his potential to grow in the NFL it's limitless. This guy could very well become one of the best defensive linemen in the league in 3 or 4 years. His potential is that high. But the reason I don't have him over Hutchinson, despite what many other people do think and do have him ahead of, is I think with a player like this that's still a little unpolished, a lot of it's going to matter on where you go. I think he has to end up in the right situation. Believe it or not, I do believe that a Detroit Lions is a good situation for him to be in, despite the dysfunction that happens in Detroit where players go to die. I just think that personnel that they have there would be very good for him to grow and develop in this league. And I think his likelihood of busting, very slim, but it is greater than the previous 2 that I mentioned. I don't think he's going to be a bust. I think he's going to be a very good player in this league. But in the meantime, I have him at number 3. Number 4, I have Kavon Thibodeau, who I had as the best prospect in this draft for most of the college football season. He is... the thing about Kavon Thibodeau is I think he plays more of a pro style than an Aiden Hutchinson. I think long term he's going to have a better career than an Aiden Hutchinson. But there are a few concerns as far as work ethic, injury history, that have to be taken into consideration. I think any team outside of the number 1 pick has to take a good, hard, serious look at a Kavon Thibodeau. And because of that, I have him at number 4. Number 5, I have Evan Neal out of Alabama. He is a physical specimen similar to a Trayvon Walker. He started all 3 years at Alabama, and he has a rare combination of measurables, talent, and pedigree. He has experience against the best competition in college football, and he started at both the left and the right. So you can utilize him in many different ways. There has been some concern over the last month or so that, again, the work ethic, the immaturity may come into question, but with a guy like this, I think you have to take a flyer on someone like this if you're an O-line needy team. And because of that, I have him at number 5. And at number 6, I have Ahmad Sauce Gardner, cornerback out of Cincinnati. Listen, this guy is an absolute stud, and unfortunately, up until last year where Cincinnati made the college football playoff, he did not receive the recognition that he deserved. He did not allow a single passing touchdown in his college football career. He did not allow a pass over 20 yards in his college football career. The guy is easily, hands down, the best cornerback in this draft, and I definitely have some mild concern about how he's instantly going to translate from college football to the NFL, but that's a slight worry. I know he's going to figure it out. I just wonder how slow it's going to is it going to be a 4-week learning curve? Is it going to be a half the season learning? Is he going to struggle his entire rookie year? I don't know, but there is zero doubt in my mind that this guy's going to figure it out, and because of that, I have him at number 6. Number 7, I have Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame. Look, I have a personal rule that I just don't want to draft a safety in the top 10 of the draft. I just feel like there's value elsewhere, and you can get a safety later on. There's plenty of examples about it. But Kyle Hamilton is the guy that I would make the exception for. There's certain players that you see in college football that just instantly remind you of a great pro. I see a Cam Chancellor when I look at Kyle Hamilton. The guy is a difference maker in every single aspect on that the defensive side of the ball. He's high impact safety with a unique blend of traits that make him a bit of a unicorn. He's very unique, and I think he's probably the best safety prospect we've seen in the NFL in a number of years. And because of that, I'd be willing to break my don't draft a safety in the top 10 rule for this guy. Kyle Hamilton at number 7. Number 8, I have Garrett Wilson, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Look, this is another big year for wide receivers. Not quite as good as the last 2 years, but still you're going to get a lot of number 1 receivers out of this draft. And I think Garrett Wilson's the best out of all of them. His game is lacking in polish, but I do believe his play strength and run after the catch ability make him the most valuable asset in this wide receiver group. He had a phenomenal year last year at Ohio State, really helped Stroud grow. You know, he was a big part in Stroud's growth in the second half of the season last year. I definitely think he's going to have to go somewhere where he's not the instant number 1 wide receiver. But I think as the season progresses, you know, I obviously have him go in the top 10, so I think he's going to go to a team that's not very good. So I'm hoping, the ideal situation for him is he goes somewhere where he can be a number 2, grow, and in the second half of the season start to carry more of a workload as you progress into the offseason, where next year he can hopefully transition into being your number 1 receiver. So Garrett Wilson, number 8. Number 9 is a guy that may be my favorite player in the draft just because of the expectations I have for him as a pro. And that's Jermaine Johnson, the second edge rusher out of Florida State. I mentioned before, you know, I wasn't as high on this guy at the end of the college football season as I have become in the whole pre-draft process. And the more I watch his film, the more I watch him dominate on what was, let's face it, a very bad team in Florida State Seminoles, the more I see an all-pro level edge rusher. I mentioned with Kyle Hamilton, there's just certain guys you see that just remind you of an NFL great. You know who I see every time I look at Jermaine Johnson? I see Max Crosby. Very similar style and play, very similar in size, very similar all around, and he's ascending. His potential to keep getting bigger and better as a pro is limitless. I love this guy. I don't think he's at the tip top, obviously, because I have him at number 8, but I think as far as potential goes, this guy may have the highest potential of all these picks. I'm going Jermaine Johnson, number 9. And at number 10, I have Jordan Davis out of Georgia. Jordan Davis he's a beefy nose tackle. He big boy. And his size and power will allow you to clog and drain and alter the offense's desire to run between the tackles. He's that big of a difference maker when it comes to run stopping. We saw it in the national championship game as well as all season long for Georgia. He was a huge difference maker on that defense. And out of all the defensive studs they have, because I'm very high on Georgia, I think Georgia's going to have 4 or 5 first-round picks this year. He was clear-cut the best of them all on the defensive side of the ball. Clear-cut. I really, really like Jordan Davis. I think his potential to grow isn't as big as most of the previous prospects that I just mentioned, but I think worst case scenario, you're going to get a very solid pro. I'll take that every day that ends in Y. So Jordan Davis, number 10, and that is my top 10. And I can't wait to see what happens. Like I said, this is my favorite day of the year. I'm absolutely stoked, and I'm hoping we see some action as far as trades and surprise picks and great players sliding down to be snagged by the great team. I just can't wait. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Please let me know what you think down below. Like, subscribe, and comment. I'll talk to you later. Thanks, guys.